This whole saga between Nigel Farage and the banks could have serious repercussions for everybody, including the banks, and it could mean that some banks lose their banking licenses if they disagree with the political views of some of its clients. And so that's what I'm talking about in this video. So one moment you'll remember from my previous videos, Nigel Farage was accusing the banks of being dishonest as to the reasons they gave for closing his account. But then later it transpires that he was offered a different account by NatWest, which owns FAQS, and that the real reason was that he fell below the wealth threshold. He said that he thought that it was because of his political views and his politically exposed person status. And now the BBC reports on a 40-page document, which I'm not going to bore you with, which talks about his association with Brexit and alleged links to Russia. And according to the BBC, minutes from a meeting at FAQS suggests that there was both commercial and reputational risk reasons associated with Nigel Farage's political views, cited as reasons behind terminating the account with them. Now, of course, banks have a commercial freedom in to whom they offer these accounts and maintain accounts, and within their terms and conditions and within their terms of service to their customers, they will have certain thresholds and certain criteria with which they can use to close an account if they deem it necessary. Now, at least according to one interview that I've watched, it's been suggested that there was a clause some time ago that because of certain products that Nigel Farage held with the bank, that he did meet the wealth criteria and that it was a commercially viable account. But in certain events, such as selling assets, or in other situations, such as a mortgage that was due to expire this month of this year, the bank would then look to reconsider the account and potentially not renew the mortgage and not continue with the account. The document that the BBC refers to, that it says it does not have a copy of, but nonetheless reports on, says that Nigel Farage had a mortgage with the bank that was due to expire this month of this year, after which the bank would not look to renew, which suggested, quote, winding down the connection on that basis. But it also apparently referred to a committee meeting that it did not think that continuing business with Nigel Farage was compatible with the bank, given his publicly stated views that were at odds with the position as an inclusive organisation. Now, skipping back to what I said at the outset of this video, this could have serious repercussions for everybody, because this is in turn going to call upon banks to have tighter, stricter, more controlled regulations, terms and conditions, and so on, which is only going to drive costs up, I can guess. But also, ministers are reportedly considering putting together conditions on banking licenses, because every bank has to have a license in order to do business with you, over the closure of certain accounts, such as that of Nigel Farage, if the bank disagrees with their political views. Because there could be a number of different things at play here. There could be philosophically held beliefs, and the bank might disagree with those. And if the bank disagreed with those and closed an account on that basis, that might even amount to discrimination. But in this case, the ministers are apparently looking at these conditions on banking licenses if the bank disagrees with political views, which appears on the face of it, according to these reports and the documents that they refer to, possibly the case in the case of Nigel Farage. So I think it needs to be said that banks shouldn't really be, and I'm not saying the bank was in this case or any bank is, but it should not be the case that any bank discriminates against accounts and people that hold those accounts because of their political views or any other views for that matter. If someone holds a view that the bank disagrees with, that should not be a reason for closing the account. And it's certainly not the only story to have hit the media if you've checked my recent videos, where a bank has terminated an account because of the views of one of its customers, such as the vicar that provided a complaint in response to a request for feedback about certain activities during Pride Month. Now, that might just be his personal views and certainly philosophically held beliefs given his profession as a vicar, and no bank or building society should be discriminating against anyone holding such views on that basis. That would certainly, in my view, raise a very serious risk of a claim for discrimination. But I do fear with any things like this they are going to increase costs, and ultimately they're going to increase everybody's costs that ultimately pay for it. Just like insurance, because if this all didn't irritate you enough, one thing that you may not know about insurance is that for uninsured drivers, there is the Motor Insurance Bureau that ends up picking up any bills for those uninsured drivers that crash into you, and then your insurance company has got nobody to reclaim the money from. Well, they reclaim it from the Motor Insurance Bureau, and every other insurance company, and in turn you as the insurance payer, are paying a chunk of your premium that goes towards the Motor Insurance Bureau to help fund it. So all of the uninsured drivers out there benefit from you, from your payments that you pay to your insurance company, which in turn pays money to the Motor Insurance Bureau, which does, let's face it, help to pick up the bill for someone who's been crashed into, suffered damage, suffered loss, personal injury, and so on. So I'm not saying it's wrong. You know, it's a good thing that there is this system in place that does compensate these people, but ultimately it's the people that are uninsured that are costing you money. So such as situations like this, there's going to be an increase in costs for the bank to comply with whatever it is that they are required to comply with after all the sand has settled and the dust has settled on this. And then the banks are just going to say, well, these are now our new charges because we've had to have all this administrative overhaul. At least that's my very best guess, because that's how these things happen. It's a bit like when someone says there's free shipping. Of course, there's no free shipping. It's hidden in the cost somewhere. You are paying for it one way or another. And when you get a whole bunch of people returning things and they shouldn't be returning things, and that adds to the cost of doing business for the retailer, of course, that's absorbed into the whole doing business, and ultimately the cost is distributed among everybody else. So I know that's a very broad way of explaining the same principle, but that's exactly the principle that we're going to go on here. So this is why it can have very serious repercussions for everybody, including the banks. And I, for one, think it's a good thing that Nigel Farage has brought this to everyone's attention, because at least everyone's talking about it, at least something might be done about it, and anyone that might hold very strong beliefs might now have their case heard properly, and the banks might take it more seriously if the bank were considering closing their accounts because of their political or other philosophically held beliefs. And if you found that interesting, which I hope you did, please join me over on Black Belt Secrets, which I will normally do on my lovely orange sofa over here, where I'm going to give you some of my more personal views. And many of you have asked me for those personal views, but they don't really belong on this channel. They don't really sit properly on this channel. Now and again, I give you what I really think, and it usually has some connection with law. But if you want my personal views on many of these subjects, do consider subscribing to Black Belt Secrets in the description below. And I've got many more things to talk to you about over there. So I'd be very happy to have you there. Please do subscribe there. Please do hit the notification bell here too, so you get notifications of new videos. And as always, thank you for watching.